Hi, my name's Ian McKellar, and I'm going to be talking about Songbird and the open media web today. I work for a company called Pioneers of the Inevitable, and we're a startup in San Francisco building open source media software. We've been around for a couple of years now, I think, working on a project called Songbird, and the bigger picture is working on something we're calling the open media web. I've been doing free software stuff for quite a few years now. I'm wearing an easel t-shirt to sort of show my old school GNOME cred, but since then I've mostly been building browsers. And yeah, that's part of what we're doing at Songbird too. So what's the media web? Our CEO likes to talk about the media web a lot, and it's not a word that lots of people use, but we basically mean everything that's happening online on the internet to do with media. Sharing music, buying music, watching stuff on YouTube, sharing playlists on iMeme. There's like this huge community there's this huge set of services out there that are letting people do really interesting new things with multimedia, with all different kinds of stuff. And it's really exciting and really interesting. But part of the problem is that it's all closed and siloed. You can embed things between sites, but you can't mash up a YouTube video with a song from iMeme. You can't do the kinds of things that we like to be able to do on our desktops and the kinds of things that free software lets people do. And especially in stuff like the music space, there's a few players that are really controlling the market right now and fighting for control. And the users are being left out in the cold. There's the start of a little bit of the DRM free stuff, but it's not really taken off yet. Really, it's just Apple versus Microsoft. They've each got their proprietary silos. Apple has got the iPod, the iTunes desktop software, and then the iTunes Music Store. And if you buy into that and you're willing to go with their end-to-end closed solution, then you've got a nice, seamless experience. But if you want to do something that they don't support, or if you are making music and you don't want to sell it at their price, you want to sell it cheaper, or you have a different kind of phone than the one they made, then you're kind of screwed. And Microsoft's trying to do the same with their Zune platform and their music store and their player. So we've got this battle between Apple and Microsoft, and it's kind of familiar to those of us who've been playing in the Linux desktop space. So we need to come up with a better way. We need an open media web. We need a way that we can build services to do exciting new media stuff, but built on open standards and built on open source and built on all the stuff that empowers users and empowers developers and allows greater creativity. So what have we got so far? So we've got some places we can get DRM-free music. eMusic's been around for a long time doing this, and they really pioneered it. And recently Amazon has gotten into the game, and so there's some compelling large stores. There's now sort of large volumes of music available without being tied up in proprietary systems. It's still largely MP3, which has got a bunch of problems with it licensing-wise, but it's still way better than the alternatives. It's way better than having the iTunes protected AAC world and so on. And we've even got some independent labels like Matador have just opened a music store that sells high-quality MP3s and also FLAC files. And so that's sort of starting to happen. We've got some media formats that work really well for us. There's Vorbis and FLAC, which are both getting adopted more and more and supported more widely. And we've got metadata formats and playlist formats. There's XSPF has been popular, and then there's RDFA and some of the micro formats. And so this is letting us, these are some ways that people who are publishing can publish in ways that are easy for other people to consume. And there's some protocols. There's your web protocols, and there's BitTorrent, and a bunch of sharing protocols like that. So we've got a lot of the pieces that we need for this, but there's one missing piece. And we think that's a user agent. We think that then we need a Mosaic or a Netscape or something for the media web to tie all these things together, to be able to connect to sites that are publishing using free formats and free protocols, and give a user experience that makes sense. A lot of the protocols and formats right now are primarily targeted at people writing scripts to poke at APIs, and we're hoping that we think that building something that's usable by end users and giving them the power is really powerful and compelling. So we made the Songbird web player. So basically what we did was we took a web browser, we took a media player, and then we smushed them together, and we saw what happened. So this is kind of what it looks like. It looks sort of similar to other media players you might see. We've got ways of navigating around. Got a library. Looks a lot like most of the popular media players now. It's got tabs. It's got a web browser. You can go to Google if you want. So it's this mix of the two genres. So you can browse your music and you can play the web. You see. So we built it as open source and on open standards and cross-platform. That was pretty important to us. A lot of media players are stuck on a single platform, and a lot of media players are not open source, and that's not what we think is important for building this revolution in online music and online media that we think will happen. We're built on top of a good software stack. We're using Mozilla Azul Runner 1.9, which is the same thing that Firefox 3 is built off of as the basis for our application. So it's all built in Zool. It's all we're getting all the benefits of the great work Mozilla's been doing as well in performance and stability. We're using SQLite for our data storage, which is pretty awesome. It's really, really fast. The Banshee guys were talking about how great that was yesterday, and I think it's making everyone's lives easier. And we're using GStreamer for media playback. Right now, just on Linux, but who cares about the rest of them today anyway? We sponsored the porting of GStreamer to Windows and Mac, and we got Fluendo and Collabora Multimedia to do some of that work. So it works right now. You can use our media pipeline on Windows and Mac. So our goals are that you can play any media you have. We want to support every format under the sun, and GStreamer is kind of the basis for all that. We want to be able to sync with any kind of device. We've been building a device API to allow us to do that, and we've built iPod, MTP, and USB mass storage implementations. And we think you should be able to customize your user experience completely. And one of the things about media, multimedia, and music in particular is that it's a very personal experience. Everyone has a different way of organizing their music. Do you organize your albums? Do you organize your artists by first name, alphabetically by first name, or by last name? People get into all kinds of arguments about this sort of thing, and we think that everyone should be able to experience and organize their music just the way they want. So we've built a platform that allows people to build very customized media players, and actually interacting with the web is the final sort of key feature as well. So as well as support as having GStreamer on Mac and Windows, we plug into the native codecs. So if you've gone and bought a bunch of stuff from the iTunes Music Store, we don't want to stop you using that media you've already bought. So we'll use their back end and their DRM system to play back your music, and the same for Windows Media. And it's all extensible too. So if we have somebody who's got their own codecs or own DRM system that wants to plug in, we can support that in the same user interface. So like I said, we've got this device API we built. Right now, we just redesigned it from scratch from all of the mistakes and lessons we learned the first time around, and are porting all of our devices over to it. We've got iPod across all three platforms, and USB and MTP are right now Windows only, but we're hoping to bring those up on Linux and Mac soon. For customization, because we're built on Zool, we get all the benefits of that platform, and one of the big benefits is the extensibility. We've got feathering, which is our skinning system, and layouts, which is our way of building customized UI, customized views. Media pages, which I'll show you in a little bit, and display panes, which is another way of extending stuff. So for extensions, it's probably easiest if I just show a couple of things off. This is Songbird. Over here, this is AdBlock Plus, the Firefox extension, and it ports with about like 2 or 3 lines of changes. We've worked really hard to make it easy for people who are already building Firefox extensions to make those work in Songbird, so that instantly we've got access to large numbers of the Firefox extensions, and users who are used to browsing the web with a customized experience through Firefox can continue to do that. We've also been working hard to make it easy to build your own new extensions. I think if I got any extensions here that are cool. We've got like, here's an album art manager that shows you the album art, and that's just written as an extension. A lot of the functionality that we're adding, like all of our device support, is through extensions. A white feather? I can do that. Why don't I demonstrate feathers? Here's one called Goose. So this is another feather that works better on the screen, I guess. One of the things we did when we designed our default feather was we made everything translucent. This one actually is a different layout too. Let me switch to one that's just. This is probably pretty unreadable. But what we did when we designed our default feather was we made everything kind of translucent, so you can just put a different background image underneath. Yeah, that's totally unreadable. Actually, I think I can't demonstrate half the things I want to in Goose. Let me switch to another one. So we've got this feathering system, which is really simple. It's equivalent to Winamp 3 skins or GTK themes or things like that. And because it's all Zool, it's built on CSS and images. So anyone who's written web pages can pretty much write their own skins. Here's one I downloaded that's like Ubuntu themed. It's really easy. We've had a lot of contributions from people who haven't done any skinning before. As well as letting you skin it and give it a different look. We've made it possible to build these other layouts. Like I just got this EPC yesterday, which is pretty exciting, and there's no way this window is going to fit on it because it's only 800 by 480 screen. So you can build other layouts. Our default alternative one is called the mini player, so it looks like the Winamp mini player. But anyone can build their own. Like the Goose player that we were looking at before is slightly different. If you take a look at this, it's got the play controls down the bottom, and it's got a different toolbar. And that was pretty easy to do just by rearranging the elements in the Zool file. But people can go even further. There's this one called Birdie. Which is just the Songbird. So you can skip tracks. He's got a play button somewhere. I think his nose is the play button. So it starts playing. So it's a pretty flexible skinning platform. And we get all of this sort of for free because we build on top of the Zool platform. So what was I going to talk about next? So Media Pages is a really cool feature that we just added recently. The default library view is the same as iTunes, similar to Banshee and Rhythmbox and a lot of these things. But this doesn't really work for everyone. I don't actually have very many media pages. There was a really cool one that one of the guys wrote, but I couldn't find it. The one I can show off is our Tag Cloud one, if it loads. I didn't break it. Oh, here you go. So you can write a custom Zool file that implements the views for your library. And you can do whatever you want in it. It's up to you. what you display. So for this one, it's a fairly simple modification. We just replace the filter list with a tag cloud, so you can say, I just want to see these bands. But we've built ones that are way more visual, that display a lot of like album art, or the one that I wanted to show that I couldn't find was one that doesn't actually let you play anything, but it displays statistics on your library. So it's really a way for people to present different views of their library. So it's a different kind of music visualization. It's not pulsing with the beat, but it's I don't know. It's a way of categorizing your stuff. And the other thing we've got is this display panes concept. One of the things in Firefox extensions is that people plug in anywhere and everywhere, and we wanted to help extension developers have some specific places that make sense to extend, and also help users have more control. Like, for example, this AdBlock Plus is over here in the right-hand corner, and I think I can remove it somehow, but I'm not really sure how. It's kind of complicated. So what we did was we added some specific extension points, which are little rectangles you can control as an extension. So like we can show album art down here, and then you can choose to put whatever you want in there. And as an extension author, when you write a Zool page to be displayed as part of the application, you can describe where you want it to show up. So you can show it there, or you can show it. We've got one below the player, and one on the right-hand side. So this is when it starts to get messy. Oh, I've got nothing to put over there. So you can have one over here. So you can. The goal with these is to be able to give people context around the music they're playing. So this one here is just a Wikipedia extension. It just embeds an iframe. Sorry. It just embeds an iframe that shows information about the current artist. And these are, of course, the Wikipedia entry for Air is not about the band. So that's all sort of the media player functionality. And the other half of it is the media web and the web browser aspect. The first part that's cool is the web playlist. We wanted to make it really easy for people to discover new music and to consume music from the web. We like MP3 blogs, and we like those kinds of services. And so we wanted to make it really easy to integrate those kinds of things into your music listening. So we have this feature called the web playlist. So if you go to a website that has MP3 links, so if we go to Flux blog, which is an MP3 blog, and let's get rid of this guy. It's a blog that's got all kinds of new MP3s linked off them. And so when you see there's an MP3 linked off, it just shows up down the bottom. And then you can play that if you want. Or you can just download it. Unless it crashes. Oh. It'll come back in a sec. There he is. So it just starts downloading, and you can see it just comes into your library. There's actually an amazing amount of music that's just linked off websites right now. There's services like Screamer, where you can just search for music and they crawl the web, give you links to stuff. All the stuff's just available for downloading, presumably legally. We don't know. We don't run these websites. So the web playlist is a pretty awesome but very simple way of consuming music from the web. So once you've browsed a lot of the websites, one of the things we added was history for the media web. So you've gone and you've read a bunch of MP3 blogs, listened to some stuff. It's nice to be able to go back and see what you've come across. So we've got this media web history, which is just a list of all of the tracks that you've discovered. So this is just all I've seen, and you can go back and play them then and add them to your library or whatever. Let me just kill these downloads because the network's kind of slow here. The web page API is one of the features we're most excited about. It's a way for websites to be able to interact with your media player, basically. So we expose a lot of the internals of Songbird with the user's permission, of course, to websites that request it. So a website can do things like find out what music's playing currently, add tracks to your library if they want, see what's in your library, create playlists. So that way, a website that wants to create a really rich hybrid desktop and web experience can do that through Songbird. And this is just sort of starting to take off. There's a few sites that are using this. One's called the Hype Machine. And the Hype Machine, what they do is they aggregate a lot of music blogs, find out what's popular. It's a way of like bubbling up kind of new music that's coming out and people are finding and liking. And they, instead of just having the web playlist, which would just scrape all the MP3s they linked, they decided to use the web page API to build a more rich experience. So here's the list of tracks that they think are hot today. And instead of just downloading them, you can click off to read the blog post about it. Or you can buy the track on one of the music stores that they link to. So that gives a website a lot more power to provide a user experience that they want to do. There's also been some music stores that have started. InSound, which is sort of an indie music store, has implemented our API, so that way you get sort of an iTunes music store-like experience, but just from any website. And I think Matador Records as well, they've built a music store that integrates with our APIs. So that way they can offer the same kind of experience to their customers as Apple does, but without having to lock them into there. So you could imagine that when we have more independent record labels publishing their music this way, it'll be easier for people who want to buy this music to go directly to the record label and sort of cut out the middleman of like the big companies that are trying to control the market right now. So the way it's exposed is pretty much just like any other sort of DOM objects. So you've got an object you can call methods on. You get callbacks when things change. And so to make that a more compelling platform, we've done things like port Firebug over. And so you've now got like a full web development environment for building these media web pages. One of the things that I built that I kind of enjoyed was a little mashup between a web service and your local library. So I took Google Maps and made it work out where the music you're listening to is from. It's kind of silly, but here we go. This guy's from here. What's the next track they've got? We're searching. Actually, this is weird, obscure music from the internet. Let's find my library that's less exciting. So where's the Arcade Fire from? It's going to find them and map them. So the idea is that it's really easy for people who are web developers to build things that would need to be media player extensions. Like for Banshee, you've got to learn the .NET platform and the Banshee APIs, and that's accessible to a whole lot of people, but we think that the web audience is way even bigger. And a lot of other media players are even harder than that. They're C++ APIs, or for iTunes, there isn't actually an API. People end up using AppleScript to talk to it. So what we want to do is make it really easy for anyone to build a music playing experience that they like. We've added a Grease Monkey support. I haven't got it enabled in this build, but that lets people write user scripts. So even if you're not developing the website yourself, you can write a user script that can go through and scrape the media off a page. If it's hidden, like if it's using a Flash player and you can guess the URL, you can add it to the web playlist. We really, again, want to enable users to control their own media playing experience. Go back. So what's next for us? The Banshee guys were talking about how they rewrote a bunch of their data APIs yesterday and how much benefit that's given them. And right now what we're doing is we're focusing on getting our performance really solid. We think we've built an interesting API that's got a lot of potential for developers and users, but we want to make our platform, to make our application a lot more solid. And so that's what we're focusing on right now. Steve, who's over there, has just been doing amazing things with our library. He made it like scrolling 10 times faster last week. So I feel like we're going to be making a lot of progress in this area. We're right now focusing on music management. We have video playback, which I didn't demonstrate because it works, but we don't have a great video management experience. So for the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to make our music management experience really awesome, and then we're going to later work on the video management aspect. I think this is somewhere where the open source community has a lot of potential to really innovate. All the video management stuff that's happened so far in the music player market has been around purchased music, and I think with the explosion of YouTube and things like that, there's a lot more interesting stuff that needs to happen. And the traditional models of managing music, which is just sort of artist, album, track name, don't make sense if you're downloading YouTube videos to sync to your phone and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that once we get this nailed, we're going to be able to do some really exciting stuff in terms of managing your other kinds of media. This cross-platform GStreamer stuff, it's sort of working in SVN, but we're hoping to promote that and get it finished. So we're hoping to get regular Windows and Mac GStreamer builds. We're hoping to open up GStreamer to a much wider audience. That's really good for everyone because the more users we have using the platform, the more bugs we get fixed. The more one of the other things that we're excited about is when we talk to people who have their own DRM solutions or their own codecs that they want supported, it'll be nice to be able to tell them, well, why don't you just write a GStreamer element, and then it'll work. And then that'll work for everyone. So it'll work for all the music players based on our platform. And then world domination or something. Does anyone have any questions?
So I have a feature that I've always wanted, which is to go to a website like Wikipedia or Amazon where I'm browsing an album and be able to extract the artist and title from that page and have it automatically go and search on Screamer or something like that for me. How easy would that be to do with this framework? Would you want to do a plugin, or how would you implement that?
So when you're browsing the Wikipedia page, you want it to search Screamer? It's not hard at all. I mean, the real problem is recognizing the artist and the album name and the track name on the original web page. But now with things like H-Audio, when things are marked up with the right microformats, it should be pretty easy. If you've got any Firefox extension development experience, it's really easy because particularly the web browsing components are just like that. You just make XPath queries to find things on a page and then call XPCOM components and all that stuff. But you should come on our IRC channel and we can give you a hand if you want.
How's your Last.fm integration?
It was really good, and then we changed our APIs, and now I think it's okay. We don't have nearly what Banshee does. All we've really got is scrubbling right now. We just haven't built it yet, and no one in the community has done it.
I have a question about how closely linked Songbird and Firefox are. I'm a 3-week-old Songbird user. Some of the keyboard shortcuts are the same, and some don't appear to work. And I don't know if it's because I just need to learn new stuff or there's a bug.
So we're based on the same core as Firefox, but we don't share very much of their UI. So all the keyboard shortcuts that are there are the ones we've added. And sometimes we try and make them as similar to Firefox as possible because we think that most of our users are going to already be Firefox users. But you should file some bugs if things are confusing to you.
So how big do you think the impact is going to be to the user to maintain two I guess, what amounts to two separate versions of Firefox, where you have to keep AdBlock updated in one and update in the other.
Well, AdBlock will update itself in both.
In edits to the about config file?
I don't know. I think we don't want to be a general purpose web browser, and I think keeping your profile separate, like you might want to use tabs differently between your media player and your web browser and things like that. Things like your proxy settings and all that sort of thing are all system-wide, so I don't think that's going to be a real problem. I think working out how people are going to use the two together is an interesting problem. Like if I'm using Google Reader to read a blog and then someone links to an MP3, how do I get that into Songbird? And we've got a lot of ideas about how to do that, but nothing has really jumped out at us as the right answer yet.
Related to key bindings, is it possible to remap key bindings?
Yes, I think so. At worst case, you're going to edit the source code. But I'm pretty sure it's remappable.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Two of them. One is, how is podcast support?
It's poor right now. I'm a big podcast user, too. It's something we're hoping to work on, but we haven't yet. You can subscribe to an RSS feed or a web page, and it'll download to your library automatically, but we haven't got the level of sophistication in podcast syncing to devices that we want yet. So,
Remembering where I left off listening? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I should follow up. Pandora.
So Pandora is really great, and but it's just a Flash application. There's no really way to integrate with it. What we would like is for people building the next Pandora to be able to build it on top of a platform that's open, so that if someone comes up with a really great recommendation engine, it'd be great if they could just create that as a website and recommend against your local music or a library of music that's available freely, or like your music subscription service or something. Right. But Last.fm still have to license their own music library, which raises the bar significantly for writing your own recommendation engine. You could imagine that if we were able to integrate a music subscription service so that if you could have like Yahoo Music Unlimited built into your player, someone could just go and write a better recommendation engine without having to license all that music. So that's sort of like the goal of a platform which can decouple all these parts.
Well, I don't understand about what do you mean by the licensing as far as recommendations go, because the metadata is all available on Last.fm. So you can mash up whatever's actually giving you the content with the Last.fm metadata. But you don't necessarily have to stream the content that Last.fm might license and provide.
Right, but if you thought of a better way to recommend than Last.fm does, like Last.fm uses basically social recommendation, and Pandora uses they review all the music and decide ahead of time.
Right.
If you came up with some crazy new way of classifying music where you've got like a brain in a jar and electrodes, you would have to then go and license the full catalog of music to be able to do a music recommendation engine. We build on Zulrunner. Right now we're building on our own Zulrunner builds because we do things. Our application looks different to Firefox. We don't have a title bar. We do things sufficiently differently that we need to often maintain patches, and that's just because, particularly when we're heading into a Firefox release like this, their tree is really tightly locked down, and they can't afford to introduce patches from us that don't affect them. We push everything upstream, but we find that it's easier for us to maintain our own builds. Some other projects that we know, like that we're friends with, like the Flickr uploader guys, are able to just use the stock builds because they're not pushing the envelope of the platform as much, but it's pretty close these days. Cool. Well, thank you very much.